What's up, guys? Welcome to a brand new episode of Debate DC. Now, listen, as I stated in my Instagram post earlier, I want to open up the topics because mixed martial arts has been just too easy. And when doing that, last week you saw the scuffle crew take on me, smashed him. So I said, you know what? My boy Ben had a wrestling podcast. He was very, very well versed. I'm trying to test myself. So I'm now going into your wheelhouse to try and beat you. So I bring Ben on because Ben goes into the app, Vover, in the App Store and says, Brock Lesnar is no good for the WWE. Now, to me, it sounds absurd, but I would imagine he's very well thought through. He's not intimidated since we've been on the phone for a while now. So he will at least give the effort to beat me. So, Ben, you've been behind the scenes. Now you're up in front of the camera. How nervous is this situation, this interaction? And also, is that argument ready to try and give me my first L?
I'm pretty nervous, to be honest, but like that just comes with being on a pod. I feel like it's good nerves. I feel like if you're not nervous before
competitive nerves.
Yeah. I think you need that juice. So, first of all, I appreciate you having me on. This is an honor to be on with you. And you know, like you said, there was no way I was going to beat you in a debate or even make you think otherwise in a debate on MMA. There's no way of doing that. So I wanted to pull you out of the octagon a little bit, right? Which Buster and the Scuffle Crew kind of did last week, right? They kind of did that with the celebrity boxing, celebrity fights and combat sports topic. But I want to bring you back to something more legitimate, more legit. Into Squared Circle, into WWE professional wrestling, and on a topic with someone that you had a direct interaction with as recent as, what was that, 2018?
Yep, 2018. And I've known Brock since college, so
there you go. So, and that's my stance. You mentioned it earlier. I don't think he's good for WWE, and I've felt this way for a while. This has nothing to do with, you know, he's coming back to SmackDown tonight, right? They advertise him every time he comes back. And for right now, right? So the approval rating probably for WWE as a whole, as a product, is probably it's low. It's low right now. Aside from probably, you know, Roman Reigns, I think he's doing great work. Your guy Big E, who you hung out with a couple weeks ago, doing great work. Xavier Woods, doing incredible work right now. After that, pretty steep drop off, right? And so they can go to Brock as almost like this crutch, right? Where they're like, oh, we're in trouble, or like we're creatively at a loss. We're gonna lean on him. Let's bring him back, right? And him in this part-timer role, being a part-timer in this capacity that he is in pro wrestling, I feel like it doesn't have the same cachet as it used to, right? Well, especially when you have other great options now, like you have AEW, you have New Japan, you have Impact, that people are so locked into, right? There's more options than ever. And to piggyback off of that point, like his almost permanent inclusion at the top of the card, it really, you know, it stunts the growth of a lot of other superstars on the roster, right? It's very frustrating to me when they keep going back to the Brock well, if you will, right? And then they end up releasing guys like, or not re-signing people like a Keith Lee, right? Or an Aleister Black, Tommy End or whatever, or Adam Cole, because there's almost this cloud that hovers above, you know, the top of the card. And it's the other frustrating thing with Brock too, is just like, from a worker standpoint, I don't think he's good anymore.
Oh,
so look, he can sell his ass off, right?
Yes,
that's where I've come around on that part of Brock, right? He can sell his ass off, and that's what ultimately puts people who beat him over. But like his moveset is terrible. It's so boring to me, right? It's nothing but German suplexes and F5s, right? And look, Suplex City was birthed out of that. Great. But there's only so many times where I can be amazed by that, right? It's not like young Brock anymore, who he jumped off the screen when he first came to WWE, right? Became the youngest champion at that time, youngest world champion at that time, was doing shooting star presses like it was nothing, right?
Man, you sound like a Brock hater right now. It's right now.
No, I'm just. I used to be all in on Brock. I used to be all in on him. And to me, I'm a big fan of the product, right, of pro wrestling in general. And it's just the stuff with Brock is almost like, to me, it's a little illogical, right? Because all the shit that guys like a Roman Reigns and a John Cena would get for not being the greatest workers, because their move sets weren't extensive, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of all the same criticism now. I feel like I think Brock gets away with it. He has literally 3 moves, and I just want to know what's up with it. He's not a great talker, right? Paul Heyman is the more interesting character of that duo, right? He's what's making it now make more sense.
Okay, so
DC,
there's a lot to unpack here, right?
Yes.
You gave me like 15 things there, Ben. First off, Brock Lesnar stays at the top of the card because he's real, right?
Okay.
You said the Scuffle Crew took me out of the Octagon into the squared circle to something more real. You literally said something more real. Brock Lesnar is real. And in that world, if you're real, you deserve to be at the top of the card. Nobody else is real, right? Because since they started to pull the curtain back, right? Before, remember, they protected the gimmick at all costs. Now, we all know the gimmick. When they started to pull the curtain back, now you start looking at the guys that looks like they can step outside of that arena and be real. Brock is. CM Punk did it, right? CM Punk was the world champion, went to the UFC and flamed out. It was terrible. Love CM Punk. Great guy, but he's an entertainer.
Yeah.
Brock Lesnar is a fighter. He's an NCAA champion. He is a UFC champion. So by him being real, you can't put him anywhere else. You can't put Brock Lesnar in the opening of a pay-per-view, because how in the world does it benefit your product, Brock, especially Brock as a brand? Brock has to be with the biggest, toughest name that you have in the entire organization every single time, because it doesn't elevate Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar is elevating the next guy. So when Roman Reigns beats a Brock Lesnar, it makes you believe, wait, this dude may be real, even though Roman Reigns isn't necessarily real. He's just a fantastic worker with a great body and a great gimmick. And the WWE loves him, so they build behind him. But the way you build behind a guy like that and you elevate him is put him in there with a Brock Lesnar. You said he's constant in the main event because these champions have to be lifted. Dude, I related to Conor McGregor, right? Khabib Nurmagomedov had 3 million Instagram followers the night he walked into the Octagon with Conor. By the end of the night, he had 10. He gained 7 million Instagram followers in a night fighting Conor McGregor. It's the same with Brock Lesnar. It's like Ric Flair said it since the day he was the man. To be the man, you got to beat the man. And when you beat the man, who is Brock Lesnar, you become the man. That's why nobody's really beating him. I just looked up something a second ago. Brock Lesnar, literally, his pro wrestling record, and I'm talking from New Japan and everything, is like 185 wins and 60 losses. Who has wrestled 240 matches in 20 years? That is how special an attraction he has made himself. So I don't believe that it is a crutch. It is a crutch. I do believe that when stuff goes sideways, they rush to the Brock Lesnar well. But because it works and because it's real. And you don't have to convince somebody when something's real. And when you look at him doing the suplexes over and over again, it's because you know that if Brock Lesnar decided to suplex anybody in that arena, he could. There's nothing they could do to stop Brock from doing what Brock does. And that is why he stands out above everybody else. I do get what you're saying, though. At times it gets stale. I agree with you on a lot of things, Ben. I believe the WWE has to change some things up. It honestly happened when they started to really cater to more of a young audience, because they were trying to engage the kids, because guess who buys the product? The kids buy the product. The kids buy the toys. The kids buy the T-shirts. They buy the belts. My son spends $1,000 every time we go to a WWE event because he has to have everything.
Yeah.
So they cater to the kids. Now, as a hard-nosed fan like you, because you sound like you know the game, you may be turned off by it. But that section of fans that they're catering to and the business of the WWE is probably doing as well as it ever has. So I do believe they rushed him as a crutch, but only because he's real and he has earned that distinction of a special attraction, because he doesn't hardly lose. He's won 75% of his matches over the course of a 20-year career, which is crazy that he's only had less than 300 matches. He's a 5-time champion. He's won every title. He can dominate. I mean, he blows the roof off the place every single time. Now, do I miss that Brock walks up the stairs now opposed to just jumping on the side of the apron? No, I recognize that. But that's what happens as you get older, Ben. But Brock has earned the right to be that special attraction. That's why they rushed to him as a crutch.
So there's two things there that I want to touch on that you said. One, kind of being the real aspect, right? And that kind of drives to, the mainstream aspect of this, right? Like when he beats The Undertaker at WrestleMania 30, that's on ESPN. Like, and ESPN just kind of at that time hadn't really ventured in, right? Like they'd occasionally have, these WWE, WWF guys in the past on, but almost like in a tongue-in-cheek sort of way, right? Like if they were promoting it. I remember that an article about Brock beating The Undertaker at 30, ending the streak, right? And it was wild to me because ESPN, again, had never really ventured into there. But now, what is it, 5, 6, 7, 8 years later, the wrestling media is so vast. Like, it's everywhere now, right? Like, ESPN regularly covers it. CBS Sports, Bleacher Report. It's just so everywhere where I'm, when I see Brock now, it's that speciality about him, it just isn't there as much.
But that's to you, though, because I was on my phone just recently. I was on my phone this morning, and I saw something. Brock Friday. It's tonight on SmackDown. On one of the major mainstream news outlets, is like, hey, Brock's back, right? Whereas on weekly, I don't see, Roman Reigns is main event at SmackDown again, or Roman Reigns he does a speech in the ring. Like, I don't see that. So it is special that Brock's back.
Yeah, so and the other thing I wanted to touch on though was they're catering to a different audience, which is very true, right? That they're catering to a younger audience. That's why Vince is very anti-blood now and everything else. They want to cater to that younger audience. Does this younger audience know Brock like that? Like, you and I saw Brock on the come up, right? Being one of these blue chippers at being trained in OVW, and then all of a sudden going to UFC and doing his thing over there. But these kids, let's say 8 to 12-year-olds.
My kid's 10 years old. My son's 10. He knows Brock. He knows Brock right away.
But is that because you're from that world, though?
But my son knew Brock Lesnar. Well, when we go to wrestle, listen, my wife does not watch WWE. We walked into a WWE event in 2016, I believe, and Brock's fighting The Undertaker in Hell in a Cell, and she goes, who's the old guy that Brock's fighting? Like, knew Brock, but had no idea who The Undertaker was, right? No idea, but she doesn't watch it, doesn't pay attention to it at all.
Sure.
I'm telling you, like, people just know Brock Lesnar. And again, it's because he was not only WWE champion, he was the UFC champion. He beat Randy Couture. Like, dude, I'm telling you, there is nothing better than real. And real, it stands above all. That's why if a mixed martial art, you watch Kamaru Usman go to the New York Knicks game, all the players are shaking his hand. Hey, Usman, because everybody represents and loves that fighter. And seeing Brock go in there all those times, the good and the bad, you know that Brock's real because you saw him win in that arena that you don't think anybody else could. And that's where Vince is smart. And even if the kids don't know Brock as the shredded 260-pound Brock, he looks a little bigger now. He's more heavy. He still is a massive human being that does not look like, you don't see Brock Lesnar's every day. For as big as Roman Reigns is, right? I went golfing with a guy yesterday that could be as big as Roman Reigns. I mean, seriously. He's as big as Roman Reigns, a Samoan guy. Yeah. You don't see Brock Lesnar just walking around the streets of the world. So when you do, you see him on television in the main event fighting for a title because that seems like where he's supposed to be at.
So for you, it's kind of the physicality thing where you're like, this guy, he looks legit, right?
Well, he is legit.
Well,
like, it's not even looks. It's like he's legit.
But that's different. Part of it, right? That's part of it. Is he has aesthetically, you're like, oh, he could kick my ass. And that's part of suspending disbelief with professional wrestling. I totally understand that. But it's like on the flip side, right? Like AEW right now, at least narratively, is they're doing great stuff, right? They're doing great storytelling. They're doing great wrestling. So like,
you saw how Wani talked to Paul Heyman the other day. And Paul Heyman said something about how easy it gets for the second guy to take what you did, maybe years past, take those same types of storylines and just evolve them. Because the blueprint has been laid out. Look, the AEW product is funner. It's much funner. They've got a lot of guys that once were in the WWE. They are a little bit more willing to go far to the left, opposed to what the WWE is doing. But again, it's things we've all seen before, Ben. Like, Ben, it's like you take the blueprint and you just kind of build off of it. And I'm not even a pro WWE guy right now. I don't watch it as often as I used to, but I know when I see AEW, what those guys are doing because I've seen this before. I've seen this before. It's just a little tweak on something that was done years prior.
I mean that's fair, and I think that just comes with wrestling in general, right? Is there's always going to be an evolution, right? And no longer can you know, Hulk Hogan beat everybody else, and you know he's hulking up, and a leg drop is a finishing move, right? It naturally evolves, but I feel like WWE in that sense has almost kind of taken a step backwards, where it's like we got to believe that Brock is kind of like not exactly like Hogan, but in that same mindset, right? Where you got to believe that he is that monster and that he can do anything. And, you know, Brock physically legitimately looks like he could do more than Hogan, right? Than Hogan could ever do. And so I'll give him that, but it's almost like part of the aspect of wrestling that I love, especially because I'm not as physically gifted as like a you or a Brock, is the psychological aspect, right? And the storytelling aspect. And like, I feel like Brock has been missing that for years now. I think when he was early on and, you know, he was on the come up, it was fine not to have that. But in terms of evolution, like I just feel like he never added that. Like the Undertaker, someone that, you know, you talked about earlier, where he kind of had to add that feature to himself once he became less athletic, right? And it's just something that I feel like guys and girls have to do to evolve. And I don't know, it just feels like he hasn't, and he's become as stagnant as kind of the WWE product. If that makes sense.
Can I ask you a question though?
Yeah.
When you're Brock Lesnar, you're cashing millions and millions of dollars of checks to do exactly that 4 to 5 times a year. Where do you change it? Because what can we really ask of Brock Lesnar? Look, as the Undertaker changed the way that he wrestled as he got older, Brock is doing what he's limited to do now. He can't do the Moonstar press off the top rope anymore. He can't do those things that he did when he was 21, 25, 30 years old. Now he's doing what he can. And honestly, I believe that in terms of an actual entertainer, he's much better today than before. Like Hogan wasn't a great entertainer in a sense that he would no-sell everything. That was terrible.
Yeah.
Brock sells everything great, right? Brock puts you over when you're in there with him. Like in Saudi Arabia, not Saudi Arabia, in Abu Dhabi, right? They wrestled in Abu Dhabi recently.
Saudi Arabia. No, you had it right.
Yeah, inside Roman beats him, right? But then Brock puts him over, right? Didn't Brock put him over? I didn't even watch.
Well, they haven't even had a full. Well,
what did they do?
He did. He put him over.
He put him over.
Yeah.
But didn't it feel more like when Roman Reigns goes back to Monday night? Because our Friday, dude, Monday's gotten so bad. Like I'm not a big WWE. Like the product has gotten stale. The Mondays, SmackDown is a much better show.
Sure. They kind of have to, right? Because it's on Fox. So they kind of
Monday Night Raw is too long still. It's all this.
Way too long.
I haven't watched Raw in years. But
yeah.
When Roman went back on Friday after the Saudi Arabia card and Big E came out to start to build their thing, it felt even bigger for Roman Reigns but trust me, what did he mention even as he was talking? Brock Lesnar, because you have to. It's just a constant push up to what you're trying to do. So I get it. Like I agree with you to a degree, Ben, but I believe that all those things are earned, and that's why we continue to see Brock in those positions, because you have to. What does it help Brock to be in there with what does it help Brock, honestly, to be in there with Xavier Woods? It will do nothing for Xavier Woods, because for as good as the work as Xavier is doing, he'll have to crush him. Just like he crushed Kofi when Kofi was the champion.
Oh God.
Because you can't make it to where it looks competitive. It can only look competitive with a guy like Randy Orton, a guy like Roman Reigns, a guy like Bobby Lashley. It can only really look competitive with those types of guys because of the way that they look when you see them on the screen. I'm telling you, Ben, that's just the game.
No, and I understand that. It's, you know, when I'm collectively like he's not good for WWE. I mean, part of it is, for me at least, you know, kind of from the performer aspect and storytelling, and that's fine. But it's also something that you touched on as well, which is like, so he can only do so much now, right? He's, you know, and that's fine. You know, Father Time is undefeated. I totally understand that. But like when this report just came out today, right, from Dave Meltzer, like Brock is the highest paid dude in that locker room for like a guy who's a part timer, right? Like I think him and Reigns, I think that the figure came out, it was like $5 million a year or something like that, right? And in guaranteed contracts too. So it's like he's got to show up obviously at these checkpoints. Like, what does that do for a locker room when it's like this dude shows up a couple of times a year, right?
Yep.
Does 3 moves, gets paid the most money when a Seth Rollins is out here, right, wearing all these ridiculous outfits, entertaining the hell out of the crowd, an incredible worker, sacrificing his body. Kevin Owens, same thing, right? And those guys specifically are probably at the top of the card in terms of what they get paid, but I mean, and then WWE's doing all these budget cuts, right? These budget cut releases where you're like, now all these people aren't going to get paid, like their livelihood is at risk. Where like I just tried to imagine what that would look like as like a sports team, right? Like let's take like a basketball or a football team where it was like, hey, this guy's going to show up.
Got the perfect thing for that in closing. I'm going to let you finish because in closing I have the perfect thing for that exact point that you're making.
No, I would love to hear it, but it's just like, let's say on a basketball team, right? There's less people there. You're paying your best player, right? The draw, but he's only got to play 20 games out of 82. Which
is honestly what's happening now. The rest games. Kawhi can rest more than another dude. LeBron can rest more than Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Steph can rest if he wanted to more than all the rest of Jordan Poole.
But they still gotta show up to practice and they do their work than their job. You know what I mean? Like Brock's job just seems different. It just seems like he's on a different pedestal. And I understand what you're saying. Like he's the real guy, but I just don't it seems unhealthy and a little toxic, like in the long run, right? When you're kind of looking at it, that's all I'm saying.
Yep. Ben, I agree with you on a number of things, but in closing, I want to tell you this. So you said something about pro teams, and I'll tell you this right now. Ryan Clark told me, played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, won the Super Bowl, played in the Pro Bowl, played with Troy Polamalu, Ben Roethlisberger, and everybody. Played for Bill Cowher.
Yep.
Coach Cowher told Ryan Clark, I will treat everybody fair, but I will not treat everybody the same. He didn't tell it to Ryan directly, but he told the team that. Ben Roethlisberger, Troy Polamalu, James Harrison, maybe those guys get treated differently, but you guys will all still get treated fairly. So I'll treat you all fairly, but not everybody's treated the same. And I think that is what happens in the WWE. Look, you're all treated fair. Seth Rollins, yes, he's there for 280 days a year. He makes $1.5 million, $2 million, right? Like, he's getting paid. That's fair. He's not getting $200,000, but he's not Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, so they're not the same. And I think that pretty much is the state to which pro teams are ran. Because if you believe Kobe Bryant got treated the same as Robert Horry and everybody else on that team, you're crazy. You think Michael Jordan was treated the same as Steve Kerr, you're out of your mind. People are treated fairly, but they are not treated the same in those organizations, in the WWE, in mixed martial arts and everywhere else. It just doesn't work that way. And Brock Lesnar is going to be treated different than most people because of who Brock Lesnar is. Now, Ben.
I already know what you're going to say because you say it to us every week.
Ben, nice NWO shirt, but Ben, come on, tell me, am I good?
No, you're great, DC. I don't think this was a landslide at all.
No,
I think we had a great conversation. I think we had a great debate. This is what Debate DC was meant to do.
This is what it was meant to be, not just me smashing fans. But Ben, come on, man. Thank you, dog.
You'll never get me off of this hill, but I appreciate you having me on, DC.
You're the man, dog. Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on. Great topic. Guys, every week, regardless of what you want to talk about, you guys are leaving your comments in the post. Bring them to the Vover app so that you have a chance in order to get smashed by me. Look, this has been the most competitive one. I'll let you guys decide who won the debate, but I think I know. That's my man, Benjamin Cruz. Thank you for joining me. Go to the App Store, download the Vover app, follow Vover on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and everything else, Facebook, and then go to YouTube, watch Debate DC, new episodes every single week, and get those questions in because I want to be able to sit across from you and test your knowledge regardless of the subject. So you guys got to bring it. Until next time, peace.